Ineno Color TV. Color TV machiegni pacho. Ma e odwa.
Chieng Podho Chieng Facebook X TV YouTube TV Kenya. Wachako kamodo ni jatend migao mar somo pacho kainde Julius Migoso gango yango ni migao mar somo oketolai makare manendo mar ng'eyo kwan mag jopuonjre e sikunde duto mapacho kainde mar mondo mi kikoro chwalo omenda ni jopuonjo gogo maonge kata manyawawe e sikunde mapacho kainde ka otwaka kata kuidayo dhoge e nyimod buseneto odiochieng' edi makawuono Ogambo wacho ni bende omenda go eko mago mag siro somo e kata capitation ma wang'e ne ochwale wang' sa kendo manendo osemiyo chenro mag somo bedo kare kama bende chenro duto mag neno ni ong'e kwan mag sikunde nyithindo kod omenda michwalonegi bende en gino endo ma sani oseketi timo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for those questions. On the question of capitation, the question of capitation institutions uploading, we have for the first time were able to release capitation this time before the schools opened. And we've had the new system called CHEMIS coming into play, and we are training all our head teachers on how to utilize that particular system so that they do not have the similar problems they had with NEMIS. We are training their teachers, and we are training 3 champion teachers in each institution so that we have enough capacity of all our teachers to be able to input the data of the students on time for us to be able to release capitation to the schools on time. We have requested them to reach out to our institutions, to our headquarters, if there is a problem, and solutions are given to them. They get assistance from our IT teams so that that particular problem ceases to exist because it was predominant in the previous system. So what we are assuring you is that going forward, we are resolving that challenge of the capitation, and one of the ways that we did it was to do the verification exercise, which has now given us the exact numbers of the students we have in each grade. The exercise we did, we got numbers from each grade, we got how many female are there, how many male, how many special needs, so that going forward we don't have that problem of
Teacher Service Commissioner osetemo duto mar neno ni jopuonje omayo oganda 40 kendo mago eko mondiki tich onendo mongiro kendo bende koro gidwaro mar mondo mi jogo eko manitiere koda namba kata TC namba to noyudo tije mamoko bende mar mondo mi koro yang tije mane giyudo mar mondo mi kik ne ni kwan mag jopuonj mathoth nitiere mago eko mapoko ondiki tich kendo gidwaro ng'iyo kwan ogogo mag jopuonje modong' mar mondo mi ne kaka inyalo timgi.
With the issue relating to an audit of the teachers in this country. It is ongoing as we speak. One of the things that we discovered is that everybody who has a TSC number was looked at as an unemployed teacher. And Senator Nyuto is here, he's a teacher with a TSC number which he has never returned, but now is looked at as an unemployed teacher. So when we give the data, for the unemployment of teachers, we include him. So we have the wrong data. So that exercise is now being undertaken, and I think there was an advert by TSC for all the teachers with TSC numbers to go into the portal and indicate what they are doing currently, so that we can now have a proper data of all the teachers that are employed by TSC, all the teachers that are in private employment, and all the teachers who've since left that particular profession to do other things. So we will be able to avail that once the exercise is completed.
Jawachi lopino wacho mapachuka ende migosi Isaac Mwaura Oyango Kanyindo mikwana magjo Kenya maromo Kanyindo pangwen klochiko gina mago mose witonge magi kalore koda ula mabende omonju gwenge mopogore opogore kakwan mamalo nitire kaunti nendo Nairobi kautu akora jofwambo yango ni piny owacho dhi kawo ting' duto magiko mag chulo kuonde giko mag kano rimbe jomotho mochari ringre jogo nitiere kod chenro duto mag neno ni wige yo nendo makare e kinde no endo bende koro yango Kanyindo ni gungu nendo makarura makore dwaro mar mondo mipidhe yiende gik mathoth gin mano endo mabende ok oyaki kendo e kamaromo adek kende makore dhi tayo chenro makamano.
The government wishes to clarify that the land that is going to be used in Karura Forest measures only 3 acres and forms part of the existing Tree Biotechnology Program Trust, TBPT Nursery. So this is not new land. This exercise does not involve any new clearing. The government has put in place several measures to support affected communities and to strengthen emergency response. The government will cover mortuary fees and funeral expenses for those who lost their lives in the floods. The Kenya Coast Guard Service has deployed 100 personnel in Naivasha, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Port Victoria, Turkana, Baringo, Lamu, and Mombasa to support rescue.
Meant to hoodwink the public that the MOU had been implemented when it is obvious to all Kenyans that nothing could be further from the truth. This fact became apparent in a most embarrassing manner when attendees led by the Governor Cecily Mbarire openly challenged the President on the contents of the so-called report. Observers would also have noted that the President purported to extend the mandate of the committee by another 60 days in the same meeting where Dr. Oburu Odinga had earlier argued that there was no time limit in the implementation of the MOU. The confusion that Kenyans witnessed at KICC yesterday is enough proof that the so-called broad-based team are aware that they are lying not only to Kenyans but to themselves. We want to also make it clear that the ODM-PG as an organ has no powers under the party constitution to make decisions such as they purported to make yesterday. You will recall that prior to and during the signing of the now expired MOU, it was the party's National Executive Committee under the leadership of the late Raila Odinga that processed and superintended the process. The purported extension is therefore ultra-vires, unconstitutional, null and void. Be that as it may, we have also held the position that whether or not the MOU had been implemented cannot be a matter of conjecture. If abductions and extrajudicial killings stopped after the signing of the MOU, we would all know because we all live here. If counties have received 450 billion shillings in shareable revenue in the current financial year, we would all know. If indeed Ruto and his government honored their pledge to respect the identity and integrity of political parties, it would be obvious to all of us. Today, we wish to present to Kenyans the true report detailing the failures in implementation of the 10-point agenda breaking down each agenda item and the falsehoods used to wrap them. Indeed, we have noticed that at the tail end of its mandate, the committee suddenly started traveling across the country, purporting to be conducting public participation. Yet the resolution to the 10 agenda items lay squarely with the regime of President William Ruto. Our expectation was that the committee would be domiciled at State House, seeking answers there on a daily basis. We present this report to seal any gaps that the committee and the regime may use to fool Kenyans that all is...
Karuka kore jaod bura nendo masuba South manendo moluor Carol Omondi to wacho ni romo mano bago dio chinendo manyoro nend manendo mar miriambo kaluore ni singo mabende koro nogol na jo Kenya kanyo ende kinde mabende koro ne ikete kogno report machalo kamane ndo kokete tim kendo dio chinendo manyoro nend mana chendo nendo marumo wango ganda jo Kenya to gik madwarore mar mondo mine kete tim misi apar kata 10 points agenda giko ne okochopo kare.
We are here to defend Baba's legacy. That is why we are doing this. It is so important for us. And I think it is important for Kenya and those who have been with Baba all along in his quest for a better Kenya. This particular document has Baba's signature. So it is important that people get an accurate, truthful, independent, impartial, and correct report on what is being done about Baba's commitment to Kenyans when he signed the 10-point agenda. We are here to make sure political fraud is not committed on Kenyans in the name of Baba. That is why we are here. We must protect Baba's legacy. That is our duty as members of ODM, as members of Linda Mwananchi, as people who worked with Baba. Secondly, whether it is NADCO or whether it is the 10-point agenda, these documents were made in the name of the people. So there must be a people's report, not what you saw yesterday, a conspiracy of some sort. The people themselves must give a verdict. And what we are going to give here today is the people's report on what they think on the implementation of NADCO and the 10-point agenda. And finally, we all have national values in our constitution. There must be accountability. When leaders make certain public commitments, they must be held accountable. What we are trying to do here is to hold those who signed this to be accountable to Kenyans. So people may ask,
abende kotiano rekoda wach nendo Maria Osava mar morominye jal nendo mabende nowuok kaka jalocha yiero nendo mokalo maiga gana 2022 Carol Omondi wacho ni jotend ODM kaachiel kod jatend piny Kenya osebedo mana kaumo wach nendo kendo gidwar mar mondo mi koro yaw sava to manende mane dwaro maduong' mar mosenendo Raila Odinga kuom mano giwe umo wang' oganda jo Kenya ka giwuonde kod weche moko manono to gineni koro report machalo kamane ndo kete tema e yo makare.
To give them a record. Now, this report, I'll just give you some highlights, and I'll not go into details because they'll all be presented. But let's take the issue of audit of the 2022 presidential elections, what we called opening the server. There was an item like that. No work has been done on that. To date, people are asking IEBC, and we are asking them again here. If you do not address the issue of technology, not just the technology itself, but whoever supplies that technology for purposes of the next general elections, then what have you achieved? That was here. It has not been done, and they were too afraid to address it there. Nobody talked about it, opening of the servers. Did you hear anything about that? Confidence in the IEBC. They bragged that IEBC has been reconstituted. But ask yourself the question, has the new IEBC inspired confidence in the people of Kenya? When there are questions on how the selection process was done, when there's ultimate suspicion of close personal and other connections between those who are put into IEBC and those who are holding high offices in government and influential positions even in ODM, there are issues that must be addressed. So we wish IEBC well, and we are going to support IEBC, but we cannot bury our heads in the sand that there are no credibility questions. So we need to discuss these things. The cost of living crisis. They talked a lot about cost of living crisis. But I want to ask you and ask Kenyans, do you feel better off today than you were 3 years ago? That is a question they ought to have answered there. Does your shilling buy you more today or less than it did 3 years ago? Those are the questions.
Agi kanyo bene makele agi komarmi Wechemanyien ne kidienende mar Podho Chieng kata kamano tudi kodwa komolo kanyendo saa chielo wange kidienyo nogo mar machiegni pacho kod saa deka e kidienyo nogo mar ng'endo weche mobro mi weche mamoko mathoth kaka gimedo molo no mesa marwa mar kawo weche manyien. Erokamano kuom ne bedo koda chakruok nyaka giko. Nyinga Joash Odhiambo Mitula, oriti masani.